I want to thank the CSL music team, and Nancy works for reading. It was a rather long reading today, I recognize that. It's a great summary of our message. This is an interim week between our 5-week series that we just finished on Natalie Cogan's book, Happier Now. I hope you'll go out and watch it if you didn't have an opportunity to do that. It's on our website. But today, we are talking about reframing your life. We're looking at how we can learn to accept every aspect of our lives in a way that makes our lives healthier and happier. And it's not about denying our feelings or denying the stressful events that happen in our lives, but it's rather about looking at life as though every event has some level of positive meaning for ourselves. Next month, we'll be looking at who we are as a community and emphasizing each one of those comments that I make every week about us being radically inclusive spiritual renegades who heal hearts and create community. But this week, as we reframe our lives, imagine what might happen if we learned how to see the good in every situation, in every personal encounter, and we release judgment and that need for us to be right or to know what's going on all the time. That's exactly what we're talking about today. First, the question of the week. What's the one choice that you can make today to be transformed by the renewing of your mind? To use positive reappraisal in your life, and to reframe your negative thoughts so as to create a life of love and joy. One more time. What's the one choice that you can make today to be transformed by the renewing of your mind, to use positive reappraisal in your life, and to reframe your negative thoughts so as to create a life of love and joy? So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is reframing? I want to explain exactly what it means, but first let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a picture in your house and you wanted to move it to a new place, and the frame didn't quite fit in the new location? If you have and you really like the picture, I venture to say that you might have had it reframed so that it would fit into the new decor, right? The same is true in our lives. As we grow and we get older and wiser, there are some things from our past that no longer serve us. Or there might be some approaches to life that are no longer how we want to be or react to others. Reframing your life involves shifting the perspective within which we experience a situation in our lives. Let me say that again. It involves shifting the perspective within which we experience a situation in our lives. For example, if you and your partner or a good friend have a continuing struggle because your personality really frames the situation in a way that makes your partner's position unacceptable, you may want to break the impasse by reframing the situation, by putting a new frame on an outdated way of thinking. Because the truth is, maybe the way that you see it comes from previous ways of interacting, and you're not that person anymore, or they're not that person anymore. Raymond Charles Barker wrote this: "You plan your own plan, for there is no one to plan it for you. You select the ideals for your own experience. For besides you, the selector, there is none other." I think the important part is you select the ideas for your own experience, and that's where reframing your life can come in. Our topic today is about reframing. And before I get further into it, take a look at this picture. The photo is not retouched. The tree is real. The stone is real. The soil is real. And it does look a little strange, doesn't it? Now look when we change our view and we see it from a different perspective. Interesting, isn't it? Reframing is a way of changing the way you look at something and thus changing your experience of it. It can turn a stressful event into either highly traumatic or a challenge to be bravely overcome. Or it can depict a really bad day as a mildly low point in an otherwise overall wonderful life. You can see it as a negative event or as a learning experience. Reframing is a way that we can alter our perceptions and ultimately relieve significant amounts of stress, creating a more positive life without actually making any changes in our circumstances. And that's the key. We don't have to have changes in our circumstances for our life to become more positive. That sounds like a great idea to me. How about you? In the reading today, Emmett Fox paraphrased a quote from the Bible. "Be you transformed by the renewing of your mind." And Fox suggested that if you change your mind, your conditions must change as well. It's true that our mental diet is really the most important thing in our life. In Practical Application of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, who is our founding father, wrote this, which actually can summarize the talk today. Our every thought is creative in our experience through the creative action of the law of mind upon it. So in changing our pattern of thought, we do not change the nature of the law, but provide it with a new plan of action. And regardless of what our experience may have been, our new thought pattern is what counts now. We are not fighting anything, any idea of the devil, evil, or limitation. We are merely using our God-given right to choose the way we desire to think, and through the natural, normal, creative action of our thought, have it become manifest as our tangible experience. It's probably time that we start invoking that God-given right to choose the way we desire to think and to reframe our lives so that we can experience more peace and more calm in our lives. I know I'm all for more peace and calm in my life. There are so many ways of invoking reframing to do that. And one of them is positive reappraisal. I read in Psychology Today that the human body has countless extraordinary features that we take for granted. Our modest sensory apparatus, for example, allows us to marvel at sunsets, to savor chocolate, to delight in sweet-smelling flowers, to enjoy music and dancing, and to feel love. The article suggested that one of our everyday superpowers is an emotion regulation strategy known as positive reappraisal. Now, positive reappraisal plays a key role in helping us cope with stress and thrive during hardships. Specifically, it allows us to reframe distressing events and generate some positive emotions such as joy, gratitude, and hope during difficult situations. I think that's why sometimes when people are at a funeral and they're telling stories about the person, there's laughter there. That might sound a bit strange and perhaps even difficult, But believe it or not, there is a science that backs up the rewards for this remarkable skill, and it allows us to construct alternate ways of thinking about our circumstances and to feel positive emotions alongside those negative emotions. Studies have shown that through positive reappraisal, not only can we influence the trajectory of our conditions and transform the meaning of negative experiences, but we can also improve our mental health and psychological well-being. That sounds pretty good to me. So exactly what is positive reappraisal? Well, let's break it down, starting with the dictionary definition of appraisal. Appraisal is an act of assessing something or someone. In other words, it's your interpretation of the effect of something on your well-being, the way you think about something that's happening, or the way that it impacts you. And how we appraise things affects our emotional reaction. Positive reappraisal is revisiting our initial interpretation of an event or a situation and thinking about it in a more positive way. In other words, learning to reframe it from a more positive viewpoint. What studies have found is that people who were able to experience positive conditions in the midst of significant life stress were invoking positive reappraisal as one of their coping strategies. And the good news is that positive reappraisal is related to increased positive emotions, reduced distress, an easier psychological adjustment to stressful life events, resilience, adaptive coping styles, and post-traumatic growth. The truth is, positive reappraisal is a skill and a disposition. Some people are naturally positive reappraisers. You might remember the movie Pollyanna. She certainly had positive reappraisal down pat. The good news is that it is a skill that can be learned by anybody. How? Basically, you learn that there is a link between how you appraise an event and your emotional reaction to it. And to a large extent, if you change how you think about something, you can change your feelings about it. We've all heard that phrase, change your thinking, change your life. Yet we probably all know that changing your thinking is oftentimes more easily said than done, right? So let's explore some ways that you might learn positive appraisal. First of all, you can try making it a habit. Like most skills, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. So practice it on small things. Find the silver lining in the clouds, the little clouds and the big ones. The second thing you can do is be mindful of your appraisals. Sometimes we can just jump too quickly into exploring what's good about a stressful event. And we need to be able to accept the negative. So don't try to push those negative feelings aside or pretend something's not happening. You're allowed to feel everything that you feel. This is hard, this is stressful, that's okay. Then you can explore what's stressful about your situation and to try to find something positive in it. Studies have shown that mindfulness and positive reappraisal enhance each other, and they create an upward spiral in your life that's for the good. Another thing you can do is know that daily moments add up. Plenty of research shows that momentary experiences of positive emotions, even in the midst of difficult circumstances, can give you more inner and intrapersonal resources for coping with whatever stress is happening, and it can improve your well-being in the long run. Did you have moments during the pandemic when you enjoyed not having to drive to work, or you were happy to be able to spend more time with your family in spite of all the awful things that were happening around you? Those were moments of positive reappraisal. Another thing you can do is get creative and find the meaning in something. Interpretation can be found anywhere. Get creative about how you reappraise stressful events. The more meaning you can find in your reappraisal, the more impact it can have. The bottom line is this: when we can find something in a situation, if only for a few moments, that is positive, we decrease the stress of it and we can live a happier and healthier life. In Richer Living, we learn from Ernest Holmes, there is a purpose and a plan in all creation. The divine intelligence has always known what it was doing. If we believe that there is a purpose and plan in all creation, then in whatever is going on, there must be something positive we can find in it. While positive reappraisal and reframing are not the same, they do go hand in hand. Let's take a look at reframing. Diane Harmony in 5 Gifts for an Abundant Life wrote this: one of the greatest privileges we have as human beings is the ability to choose. Conscious choice is a uniquely human quality. We are the sole creatures on this planet that can design our lives entirely by choosing what we will focus our attention upon. So what do you want to focus your attention upon? When you repeat negative thoughts or a bad experience over and over in your mind or in your stories to other people, you begin to lose sight of the positive things around you. You lose that sense of your superpower of positive reappraisal. Dr. Petra Wells reminds us, limited and negative thinking will never create abundance and joy. Turn your thinking to universal spiritual truths. Focus on them as much as you can while thinking about what you want to have different. You are always co-creating with the universe. So try a new thought, a different perspective, or a unique point of view. This is how you create something new in your life. So how do we go about creating something new? And recognizing when an intrusive thought is taking over so that we can actually become intentional about stopping that thought. Let's talk about that for a minute, because there are actually a number of things you can do. Let's suppose you're a stewer. I know a few people in my life who dwell on things and stew about them. Stewers constantly let things stew, cook for a long time. What can you do? Reframe. Recognize when an intrusive thought is taking over. Become intentional about stopping the thought. Replace that thought with happy thoughts. Come up with a list of things that make you happier. Start a journal of blessings and refer to it when you have those thoughts that you're stewing over. Another activity that can use reframing is magnifying or overgeneralizing. When you draw conclusions that are not justified based on limited invitation, you're magnifying or overgeneralizing. Ever had someone accuse you of making a mountain out of a molehill? Yes, overreacting to a minor issue is common. I had a colleague once who would edit my work. I was a contractor, and when I got back the first draft she had edited, it was full of red ink, and I was certain I was going to lose the contract. The truth was, she was a wonderful editor, and her comments made it so much better. I just had to read all the way to the end where she told me it was a great draft. I tended to magnify or overgeneralize all those red marks. So how do we reframe? Focus on the big picture in life. Goal setting is one way we do that. Or we can move on and realize that you have the power to change and to do better. I had the power to realign how I was writing so that it fit her style of what she needed. And finally, be able to make mistakes and forgive yourself. When we magnify or overgeneralize, sometimes we are putting things on ourselves and we just need to let go. Ernest Holmes in A New Design for Living stated, "When in our experience things sometimes seem good and at other times bad, we need only examine our ideas to determine the cause. Cause there must be, and that cause has to reside in our thoughts. For it is only through thought that things become tangible and are sustained." So if you stew or magnify, remember it is only through your thought that those things become tangible. Maybe you're an all or nothing person, seeing things in black and white with no gray areas, believing that everything is exactly right or dead wrong, thinking things as a complete success or a total failure. This type of thinking sets you up for failure because it's impossible to achieve success all the time. So how do you reframe? Give yourself some slack. You're only human. Nobody's perfect. Learn to be okay with navigating the gray areas of your life. And remember to be flexible. Perhaps you're a fortune teller. When you assume that you know the outcome before it happens, or when you think you know what somebody else is thinking, you're attempting to predict the future and read minds. Guess what? Your assumptions are usually wrong. So how do you reframe? Start assuming positive outcomes. If you imagine yourself being successful, or imagine that others are thinking positive about you, you're more likely to have a positive outcome. Picturing a negative outcome often keeps us from trying. Since you cannot possibly predict the future, try just being positive. And one last thing, do you take things personally? We did a series once on the 5 agreements, one of which was don't take things personally. When you think that everything that happens around you is related to you somehow, you're taking things personally. Perhaps you feel the people around you are behaving the way they are because they're reacting to something that you did. These thoughts can cause you to blame yourself for things that have nothing to do with you. So how do you reframe? Realize that just because something happened near you, it doesn't mean it had to have anything to do with you. Remember that you really aren't the center of the universe. Not everything is related to you. Consider that you may have nothing to do with what other people are reacting to. We can always choose to reframe our thoughts, to reframe those thoughts that we have in our minds. And when we do, our lives become happier and healthier, more peaceful, more calm, more loving, and more joyful. I want to end with these words of Nona Brooks. Plant thought seeds about yourself and others that are rooted in reverence and loving kindness. Plant seeds that focus on God's presence at the center and circumference of all you say, think, and do at work, home, or play. Be mindful. Be skillful in the seeds you plant and how you nurture them. Your life is your garden. Keep the weeds out, because that is the one way in which you can personally beautify our world. You owe that much to yourself and to those who receive the benefit of the seeds you drop along the way. So in summary, learn to reframe and to develop some positive reappraisal skills. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If you change your thinking, your conditions do change. Our mental diet is key to a joyful life. And remember positive reappraisal. Learn to generate positive emotions such as joy, gratitude, and hope, even during difficult circumstances. Revisit your initial interpretation of events and try to see the situation in a more positive light. And reframe your negative thoughts. Give up stewing and magnifying the all or nothing thinking. Quit being a fortune teller or taking things personally. Find those seeds rooted in acceptance and loving kindness. So the affirmation for the week is this: how is it that I so easily and willingly make the choice today to be transformed by the renewing of my mind, to use positive appraisal in my life, and to reframe my negative thoughts so as to create a life of love and joy? So your challenge for the week is make up your mind, as Emmett Fox suggested, to devote the week solely to the task of building a new kind of thought, of being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And let everything else in life be less important compared to that. Adopt positive reappraisal. Seek to find the positive in whatever is happening in your life and avoid dwelling on any negative thoughts. Reframe those negative thoughts. So if you notice yourself stewing or magnifying or fortune telling or living in an all or nothing world or taking things personally, reframe. And that helps you to reframe your life. Let's pray. So as we take a deep, nourishing breath and recognize the God of love and joy and peace and ease, and settle into that place within us where we are connected with that one life that's God's life. What I know is that each of us is capable of reframing our life so as to have it be happier and healthier, more peaceful and more calm. I know that each of us makes that commitment to devote the days this week to building new habits of thought that support us in transforming our lives and renewing our minds. I know that we're learning this skill, this superpower we have of positive reappraisal and using it. when things become difficult in our lives, trying to seek the good, the God in everything, in every situation that's happening. And it's in knowing that the God without is right within us, that I know we're each capable of doing that, of transforming our lives into far more positive ones. No matter how good our life is, it can always get better. And I know that to be the truth. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for this community, for this opportunity to really look at how we are living individually and as a community. I'm grateful for all the joy that shows up in my life. And it's from all that gratitude that I release these words into the law of mind, spirit, and action, because I know the truth that God has already called it good, already called it done. So I can just say amen, and we can affirm it together. And so it is.